Sundays to the Honolulu Blue, to the Silver Stripes and the soul of the Blue Crew. From the ashes of 0 and then 16 we rose with the chip on our shoulder that everyone knows. I stand with the faithful, the loud and the loyal, on Michigan soil where the battle lines coil. I pledge allegiance to the shield and the mane, through the lake effect snow and the November rain. One nation under God, moving the chains, with the fire of the city coursing through our veins. Hey, invisible spirit, upon them will crack. We got the whole league's targets on our back. Watch the war room flicker, watch the vision take hold, turning late round flyers into Detroit gold. He's the master of the board, the dealer of the deck, putting every expert opinion in check. Put every expert opinion in check. He doesn't follow trends, he creates the hook. Quiet in the room, let Brad cook. To the trenches we swear, where the dirty work's done, where the game isn't played, it's physically won. I promise to roar till my vocal cords fray, to believe in the homes and the Brad chosen way. We don't want the flash, we don't want the glitz, just the hunters who thrive in the heart of the grit. Liberty from the cellar, and justice for the years of pain. No more same old lions, just the kings of the northern reign. I pledge my allegiance, my heart and my roar, to the team that we love and the team we adore. With kneecaps for breakfast and victory in sight, we're the Detroit Lions and we're winning tonight.
All right. Hey, happy morning, everybody. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday. Welcome into another edition of the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Look, we've had an exciting week here. First week of OTAs. We're going to talk about it a little bit. This morning, we're gonna do a little recap and hear what Dan Campbell had to say. We're going to talk about Drew Petzing and why Jared Goff is so excited. We'll listen to Jared Goff this morning, as well as Aiden. Like, I didn't catch the video on Aiden, but you know, he's talking about this window. We're going to hear why Aiden, or I'm going to talk about why Aiden doesn't believe in windows. I think people took that the wrong way. Lions offensive line doing well already, but there was something unique that happened over this last week, and I'm not surprised. It's something that we talked about last week. Ali McNeil's energetic. You know, he's ready to go, and I think that's exactly where he needs to be. This is a year that he needs to really jump out and prove himself all over again. You know, last season was not where he wanted to be, coming off that major injury in 2024. I think last year it really slowed him down a little bit. So we're going to talk about all those things a little bit more. Hopefully we'll get to the 10 o'clock hour and we'll get them all wrapped up. But you guys know how it goes, man. Once we start talking, once we start conversing, it seems like I never get to finish all the topics. And maybe that'll change. I know tomorrow when Eric is back, he's going to have a couple of topics for us as well. And our goal is to get to at least 6 topics every day and see if we can't, have a good, well-rounded conversation on everything. So anyway, good morning. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Some nice weather here in Michigan. Finally got outside to do some things. Megan and I have been out property hunting. Still can't find the right piece of property. So we've kind of turned our attention to house hunting. Found some really nice houses. A little bit more than what I think we want to spend, but it is what it is. The only thing that I care about is that I have an area where I can put in the Speakeasy podcast studio. Like that's the only thing I care about. That's the only piece of the house that I even care about. Anything else, it's all her. Whatever she wants, it's all her. So I'm excited. Some of these houses that we've seen so far, man, they have like, one had a full theater, and Megan, she decided to go in and use AI to make like a new theater with all dressed up with lion stuff. And I was like, man, that looks great. Could you imagine the football parties that we could have? And I mean, even doing the podcast down there, like it would just be really fun. Big 180-inch screen TV, and it had a projector and all that stuff, all built in with theater, theater sound. But I don't think that's the house we're going to end up with. After walking through it, I felt like it was way overpriced, and love the theater, but we need more than that, right? We need more than that. I thought it would have been a really unique way to do the podcast for sure. But good morning, everybody in the chat this morning. Looks like we've got the regulars, some few new ones in here this morning. So if you're new to the podcast this morning, please do me a favor, raise up your hand and introduce yourself to everybody. Just say a quick hi, maybe where you're from, where you're watching from, and make sure you guys subscribe this morning. Don't forget, that's big. We got to get to at least, let's hit 50,000 subscribers this year. Like that's a huge goal. But I think that when we start really rolling and start getting the content back and rolling again, I think that we'll be able to get pretty close. At least let's get to 35. But we'll do pretty good this year. I have a sneaking suspicion we'll do pretty good. Great conversation this morning. Had a conference call with my guy and some other people. I got another conference call tomorrow. This one's bigger. So I'm trying to partner with a major nonprofit for thyroid cancer. And I just sent in an email. I wanted to get some information from them. And they have like some really cool pamphlets and some other things that they will hand out. They will send you. And I said, this could be a unique opportunity where maybe you send me boxes of them and then I'll utilize them to hand them out, like I did last year at some of the games and even the year before, all the pamphlets that I made. But let's go deeper with it, right? Let's take this to the next level. And so I'm excited about having this conference call tomorrow. I'll let you guys know who it is, when it's happening, if it's happening. But at a minimum, we're going to support them this year and do some cool things for them this year. So I'm all excited about that. Let's get talking about some Lions, man. I think we should probably start right away with some highlights from the weekend. Or from last week, I should say. Let's start with some highlights. Make sure I got this even queued up this morning. It's been a busy weekend, man. Busy weekend. I plan on doing a lot more, and I didn't do anything. A lot of driving. And gas is way too damn expensive. It costs $150 just to fill up my truck. Burn through that in a day. Easy. Way too expensive. All right, where is it? Thought I had it up there. Maybe I didn't. Here we go. No, I didn't have it up there. I certainly didn't. I got to go back and fix it. Give me 1 sec here. I finally got my my Stream Deck. Like I never used it, right? For 2 years, never used the darn thing. And I went to use it and it was broken, like straight out of the box. And so big shout out to Elgato, man. They sent me a brand new one, even though it's been sitting here for like 2 years. It was just a little bit out of warranty, but they took care of me, man. So big shout out to Elgato for doing that. Really appreciate them going above and beyond because they certainly didn't have to. All right, let's check out some highlights from last week. I don't know if this audio is going to kill me, but if it does, I'll just have to clip it out later. This is pretty exciting music they put to this, too. right, man. Love it. Love the highlights. Love the energy. Love the music. I'm so excited for football, man. I don't know about y'all. I think y'all are too. Let's listen to what Dan Campbell had to say. Let's get in old Dan this morning. And we'll be back here in just a minute. We'll break this down. We'll go through what he had to say because he mentioned something that I mentioned last week, and that was the hype, right? You're going to see a lot of highlights. Hold on. You're going to see a lot of highlights, over the next several weeks, when the media is allowed at camp or in OTAs, you're going to see some of their highlights and, it's going to show things like, oh, J-Mo burned DJ Reed, or whatever. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, football fans, it's 7-on-7, right? It's individual drills. Don't get all excited about the hype. It's good to be excited about football, but don't let it sway your decision in thinking like, oh my goodness, these players are going to be incredible. Or, this practice squad guy, deserves to have a call up onto the regular roster. And I think I saw something like that in the Blue Zone chat, over the weekend too, that I think it was from Trace that, and I'm going to play that Tom Brady stuff, by the way. I think that what he said, I don't think it was this year. I couldn't tell. It looked like it was a little bit older, but anyway, before I get off and running on a different subject, don't get worried about the hype this year. There's going to be some guys that are going to get tore up. There's going to be some guys that are doing really well. And at the end of the day, it's spring. It's now June 1st, 2026. Like, these guys have been playing football their whole lives, but they've literally been doing it for 3 practices last week. 3 practices. So, or maybe it was 4. But the point is, it's June. Don't worry about June. Let's worry about late July, even later August. That's when I'm going to start making my, heads or tails decisions here on who's going to make it, who's not, who's doing well, who's not, and who has the opportunity this year to go the distance. So don't get worried about it right now. I know it's fun. I know it's exciting, but you're going to hear a lot of people try to sway your decision, or your thinking on a player. Don't let them do it. Just don't let them do it. Just wait until we start getting into the, the later parts of training camp, into the preseason. Hopefully we see the guys this year in preseason. I have an idea that I think that we will. I'm not saying that we are. I just have an idea that we might see the starters in preseason this year. I'll tell you more about that in a couple weeks. But anyway, let's listen to Dan Campbell. Let's hear what he had to say and get it rolling.
So we started OTAs on Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess. So, today will be day 3, but it's, the guys are working hard. We wouldn't expect anything different. And then as we all know, the OTAs, it's, we're really doing right now for this week. It's jog through with the team, and then we're moving pretty good on 7-on-7, but we'll 2 spots. We're going to have 2 fields and walk through. So don't read into all that. I saw so-and-so on field 2. Okay. Doesn't mean anything. The guys know that too. So we're working through it. And this time of year is about communication, man. Working your craft, getting better at what you do. And then, man, learning to work with the guy next to you, whoever that is. Nobody's going to win a job in the spring. So that's where we're at. Kirby, Branch, Laporta, they're all improving. Okay? None of them are practicing. It's the best I can tell you.
When we talked to you in Arizona.
Questions? No, you're good.
When we talked to you in Arizona,
All right, I'm going to pause it there for a minute. Just throwing some shout outs this morning, some names in here. If I didn't put you in the text, I'm only giving so many characters. But good morning to everybody, all the newbies, all the oldies. Good morning. Hope you all having a great Monday. So look, did we really expect that Sam Laporta was going to be out there? No. Did we really expect that Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph were going to be out there? Yes and no. I expected Kirby. I did not expect BB. This Kirby situation is a big problem, in my opinion. I think it's a big problem. And I'm not saying that Brad fumbled just yet. He might have. But you really can't do anything about injuries. And I'll go back to what I said last year. There's no way, in my opinion, after all of the 150 different imaging tests that I've gone through, and just, half a dozen of them just a couple weeks ago, there's no way that they would have not seen something wrong with his knee. There's just no way. Especially if it's as, degenerated as what has been reported or speculated. That to me would be a major fumble if they didn't do the proper imaging studies and or they just based it off x-rays, because I can tell you right now, I've had multiple x-rays on my hips and my knees, and I've had doctors tell me, oh, dude, you're good. You got plenty of spacing. You're fine. You don't need a knee replacement or hip replacement. And I said, let's get an MRI. So we get an MRI, and he says, oh, shit, dude, you need 2 hips and 2 knees. Which ones do you want to do first? I'm like, come on, man. So if it's happening to me, it can happen to anybody. So this one to me is got me a little bit worried. Kirby should be out there. And I get it. Like, if you're trying to reserve the guy a little bit, you don't want him going through a bunch of extra reps. Well, that concerns me too, because if he can't go out there and compete like a $20 million man that he is per year, well, then you need to do something. And I'm telling you right now, the guy that is going to bite us in the ass is that pick in Jelon Kilgore. Like, not taking Kilgore was a major fumble for me in this draft. Doesn't mean that I don't like the guys that we have. I think the guys are going to be plenty good. But Kilgore was a player that I think the Lions should have brought in. Hands down, I would have made extra moves to make it happen. And we'll see what happens this year. I think he went to the Colts. So we'll see what happens with Kilgore. It may take him a year or two, but that guy has so much versatility, it's not even funny. Anyway, I stopped to talk about this because the Kirby thing, it has me worried. So I'm going to put something in the chat here and see if you guys are thinking the same thing.
You talked about moving Panay over to the left side. Has that, in fact, been the case? And just, you were pretty confident it wouldn't take long for him to kind of fall into. I know it's not pads, it's early, but just how's that going?
Good, good. He's over there. He's been, really since. I mean, he's been working it, even being back home before we started the off season. Once I gave him the word, so it'll be like riding a bike for him. Will there be things he'll have to? Yeah, of course there will be. But I mean, he has played left. That's muscle memory. He played a lot of left in college and for us for those, in 21, those first few games. And he still took reps at left, even, over the last 5 years. So, that'll be seamless. That'll be seamless. So can do it all.
Just a quick follow-up on the Branch Joseph Laporta. I know, whatever, it's spring, but what are your plans, visions for them for the spring, summer? I mean, there's no need to get them on the field, I guess, now. Do you want to see Kirby or Sam at all? It's important for them to get on the field.
No, I don't. That's not the priority. And it's not worth all that anyway, Now, Laporta's taken some jog through. He's done some of that. He's not going to be out there today. But that's not listen, the most important thing is continue to let them improve, rehab, all that. That'll take precedence right now. So they're in meetings, they're getting the mental side of this, and just take it day to day.
Is there anybody else out there that we, just so we're not
There'll be a lot of guys who probably won't practice. TA probably won't practice. We'll have a couple of these rookies that probably won't do very much, and that's more precautionary. Some of the rookies, it's the same way every year. They train for the combine or for the for all of those drills. They don't train for football. So we just got our hands on them. For I guess going on week 3, something like that. So we just want to be smart with these guys, make sure they're ready to get on the field to do. Even though it's not a lot to be able to do that, we don't want any setbacks. So there'll be some guys that don't read into it. I've told you, the big 3.
I feel like you maybe preemptively answered part of my question, but you scratched the rookie minicamp this year.
Mm-hmm.
You were, doing a big overview of what you want to maybe change. What went into that change? And then I guess the second part of that is how did you maybe supplement the acclimation period for those guys?
Well, I think, yes, I kind of answered it there. They're not ready. They're not ready for football, not really, even on a limited basis. Now, it's good to here's you get them acclimated, you get them on the field. At least it's your kind of first chance to do those things. And you can bring in some other guys, some veteran guys, some tryout guys, and you may find somebody you like. So you get a little bit of that, but it's not worth it anymore, and really the straw that broke the camel's back last year was, it was the first walkthrough. We had guys all over the ground, so the league didn't take too kindly to that. And, and it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So let's get them ready. Let's physically get them ready to where they can get with the rest of the guys and look like football players a little bit.
Okay, so that's concerning to me. And what I mean is that last statement where he said, last year in our first walkthrough, we had guys all over the ground, and the league did not take kindly to that, I think is what he said. Essentially saying the league didn't like that. I don't really know what he's talking about here. A walkthrough, you don't have pads on. Why are guys all over the ground? I don't understand that, because it didn't seem like that he was talking about the guys in pads. It sounded like he was talking about OTAs and a walkthrough and the mini camp, right? And so I want to know more. Again, I wish I lived on the east side of the state so I could get into some of this action and get in there and ask some questions. I don't know. We'll see if someday I can make something happen, but I need to find somebody on the east side of the state that wants to do it. So anyway, I don't understand where he's going with that. I don't know if the league actually sent them a memo and said, hey, what the hell are you guys doing? But it sounds like this year the Lions have taken the tempo down, at least from, how quickly they're going to ramp up, and the players, that are on the field and they're taking a kind of a different approach. We're seeing a totally different Detroit Lions team this year. And that's from an organizational standpoint. It's from a practice standpoint. The draft was even a little bit different. And I think that the players that we've retained and the players that we've gone out and tried to lock down, it's all been a little bit different. One thing I do want to mention, and this is a big statement, right? So with Kirby, with Kirby and Laporta sidelined and Branch, now you could have Kirby up in there right now, but what's happening with these guys not in is the Lions are also able to bring in, some other guys. And so bringing in some other vets or some other UDFAs, making some room, because I think Laporta, if I'm not mistaken, is Laporta still on NFI this year? And I think BB's on NFI. And Kirby's probably on NFI, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked. I'm just going to venture a guess that they still are, because they finished the season injured. And even though I don't think Kirby ever went to IR, technically, I think they could start him on a list. I should probably look that up. And if that's the case, then you have 3 open positions on the 90-man roster, where if these guys are not on the field, you can bring in 3 outsiders, 3 UDFAs to get a better look at. And like he said, maybe you like one of them and or 2 of them. And it's somebody that you want to keep around for the summer. So it is a good opportunity, but at the same time, damn it. I mean, Kirby hasn't played since week 6, right? It was the Chiefs game. Week 6 last year. He hasn't played. If you just have some inflammation, right? If it's not as bad as what we think it is, then why the hell is he not out there? It's June. That's 6 months since December. You're talking over 9 months. Like, you could have had surgery by now. He could have had surgery and been up on the field already if he needed surgery. I don't get it, y'all. I don't. Something ain't right with that whole thing. And I need to find out what this first walkthrough league thing is and what happened there.
And do you feel like there's been some changes, like you mentioned, schedule-wise? Your offensive line is going to look a lot different. You've changed maybe the most changes you guys have made in an offseason. Is there something about evolving now and not, because last year you did make the playoffs, not just running it back, so to speak? Is that part of what you guys are dealing with right now?
Well, look, some of it, as you guys know, every year, there become new challenges, obviously, between cash and cap, as we all know, right? So that's always going to play into it. But I think it's, when you've been able to hold a group together for a significant amount of time, and then it doesn't, you don't get the benefits you want or the results that you want, now there's a lot of things that go into that, but it's probably time to shake it up a little bit, And listen, I mentioned this at the owners' meetings. The guys that have been here that we were not able to re-sign or have gone other places, man, those guys we will forever be grateful to those players. You know, they were a big part of this, and for us to get up on our feet, you know, and I wish them the best. But this is a new season, man. It's a new season. It's a new year, and there are a lot of things that will never change here that we're about, but there are going to be things that we evolve. Offensively, defensively, special teams, there's a lot that we can get better at. And really the most important thing is learning to work together, man. And the more you work together, the better you get at your craft. The more you trust the guy next to you, the confidence goes up, then winning goes up.
Dan, last year you said on the podium when the season was over, you're going to take a deep dive in the whole organization, go do all this work. Okay, now that the new season started, the video you guys put out was a no-nonsense video with the schedule. Did you find something out during that deep dive that you are going to implement immediately? Was there one thing last year that you said, we're not doing that again?
No, I just think there's so many things that go into it. There are. It's not just one thing. You know, when things don't go the way you want them to, it's not just one. Just like it's not one player, it's not one coach. It takes everybody to win, and it takes everybody to probably lose. You know, unfortunately. But I do think, man, just getting back to a little bit of the no nonsense. You know, it's a lot easier when nobody knows who you are. You know, I'm talking about us as a team and all that, because now you kind of fly right under the radar, you know. But then the better you do, the more hype, the more you're doing this. This player gets paid. This coach, whatever. This coach moves on now. And it's all this other stuff that has nothing to do with what got us to that point. That gave everybody. We all reap the benefits of that. It's just a little bit, let's get back to that, man. Let's just get back to the business of what it is. It's about football, first and foremost, and it's about the guy next to you. That's it.
And have the players have you felt the players buy into that since
well, look, it's not that hard. I mean, our guys, that's the good news is it doesn't take, our guys know, man, you know, and our guys know. You know, we got the right guys. That's why we've, you guys know who they are. That's why it's Sewell and Sane and Jack and Golf and, you know, Hutch, and we can keep going, you know. We can keep going. So those are our guys, and then let's bring in some competitive guys that we feel like fit what we're about. We try to do that every year, and man, they'll mesh with those other guys. It'll be good, you know.
Before I forget, I didn't throw it up on the topics of the day today, but I do want to talk about Daniel Jeremiah's list, if you will, talking about building a competitive or a championship roster. And as Dan was just ripping off a few names there, I think it's funny. Look, I respect the hell out of Daniel Jeremiah. He is one of my favorite guys that talk football, part of the NFL program. One of the best scouts out there, worked for, I think it was the Ravens. I'm not sure, but he was with, some NFL teams there before he decided to go, the other route, into media and working for the NFL directly. So, I respect the hell out of him. I've had the opportunity to talk with him a few times over the last couple of years, been a part of a couple of, private conferences, press conferences, or, conference calls, for media, and he's a super smart dude. But there's just some things that I disagree with, and so I want to talk about that this morning and see if we agree or if we disagree, because naming the positions that you think that every team must have to win a Super Bowl, I would say that based on that list, and again, we'll talk about it right after this, the Lions have had that, and we still haven't won a Super Bowl. So I guess make it make sense, right? We'll come back to that in a few moments. He mentioned the past players a few moments ago, and this is something, that I spoke highly of a couple months ago, during the, off season, You're bringing new players in, free agency period. It's shaking up every team. And the one thing that, I sent like Alex Anzalone a message and I said, dude, you help shape this team. You help build this team. And you're a big reason why this defense is where it is today. Coming in, knowing Aaron Glenn's system, knowing the way that Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell wanted to, coach and mentor the players. He was a very big reason as to why the defense has played extremely well at times. And they've built, building block on top of building block over the last 5 seasons. So big shout out to the AA this morning, man. He's such an exceptional human. He's a damn good football player. It's tough to see him go to another team, especially an NFC opponent, that we might see in the playoffs. But it is what it is. It's the NFL. And you're going to have player turnover, and you're going to lose some good players every year. The Lions lost some pretty good football players this year. And a few of them went to, teams that we're going to see at some point, whether it's this season, regular season, or in the playoffs, whether it's Washington and it's Amik Robertson, or it's Tampa and it's Alex Anzalone and AQM. We're going to see these players, and these players have done a lot for this team. So he's 100% right, man, that it's about the guys that are in the building today, but we can't forget about the players that helped get us here to this point. So big shout out to all the players that are no longer with the Lions. You all have had a hand in helping this team get to where it is today. Let's wrap up Dan Campbell here a couple more minutes, and then we'll transition to something else.
Speaking of some of those new guys, we talked to Jack on Wednesday after day one, and he said it's refreshing to see kind of just a new hunger amongst some of those new guys. I know it's only been 2 practices, but has there been any new faces that have stuck out in those first 2 days?
There's been a lot of guys that have done really well for 2 days in pajamas. And then there's some that are learning through it. They're working through it, they're learning. But there again, I'm done with the hype of the pajama party in May. It's about the mental, it's about the movement skills, like all that other stuff doesn't matter. And then we'll find out in training camp who's who. This will be the most competition we've had, in my opinion. I think top tier competition. This will be good. This is going to be good across the board. So now it's just there again. Let's get acclimated. We want to hit the ground running when we get to late July, August. That's what we want. So that's really what this time's about.
You said across the board. I was just, 1 or 2 spots in particular that you're really impressed with that depth right now.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I'm sure you want to know what they are. Yeah.
Can you talk about? Obviously, one of the emphasis this offseason was the offensive line. You guys bring a lot of new guys in, acclimating these guys. How have they been doing so far, and just the job that you guys do with the line? Do you feel like they will come on be better than last year?
I like those guys, and there again, it's early. But Cade, man, he's a good-looking dude, man. He's a big man. He's built right, moves pretty good, and now it's just getting up to speed with our terminology, the mic points, all that. But I like Cade, man. He's going to be he's a good fit for us. He's a good fit for us. And same thing with Larry Borum, man. Moving Sewell over there to left. I think there again. For what you want from a young guy, talking about with where we are going into week 6 of off season or whatever, I like where Ratledge is going. All right, that's good. It's good. So I feel a guy that, had learned a lot and has grown, has taken some of those things. So that's good. But yeah, we got a lot of competition in there.
Where's the last 3, Larry, Dan, Sony? Go back to the conversation with Panay about switching positions and how much his mindset and talent, athleticism allows him to do that.
Yeah.
Seamlessly.
Well, his talent speaks for itself, and then he's got all the intangibles. That's why he's rare. He has all the skills, he has all the intangibles, and he works hard, man. He works hard. So. He's versatile. There's a number of positions he could play. I think he could play guard if we want him to play guard. I've already told you he can play tight end if you need him to play tight end on some stuff. Just, the big thing will be don't overload him, pretty soon it's like any other player. You start asking him to play 3 different positions, and it starts to add up. But he's just, he's another one who don't take that for granted, his ability to move and kick over. But, he was good. He'll do whatever we ask him to do. He's a team guy.
Yeah, just thoughts on where Levi is and any chance he can pick up on the momentum he had coming out of 24.
Yep. I like where Levi's at. All right. And I'll leave it at that. He's working. He feels good. I'm not hyping anybody up. Not in May. It's not worth it.
Can you guys tell that Dan Campbell's totally changed? I mean, he in years previous, I think that he was doing the job of a head coach and a motivator and a mentor where, he comes in, it's OTAs, and he's like, man, this guy looks great. He's out there, he's playing, he's making some moves now. Watch out for this guy. How Dan is. He's the ultimate motivator. So I think he's kind of sending the signals. These players are listening to this stuff. They want to hear what their coach is talking about. And so when they hear their name, they're getting excited. But does that mean that they now take a step back a little bit? Like, oh, I got this, and I don't think any player really at this level would be like that, but you never know. But Dan is not, like he just said, I'm not going to hype anybody up this year. I'm not doing it. It's too early. It's May. And they've said it from day one. We're not trying to win headlines in March, in April, in May, in June. Like, we don't care. We want to make headlines January into February. That's where they want to put it down. Like, that's where they want to make, everything known of all the work that they did in March, in April, in May, in June, and July, and August, right? So he's not going to hype anyone up. But Levi, let's talk about Levi for a moment, because I said this last week. If Levi stays healthy, Levi is going to be one of the starters on this defense. And I know that's kind of a weird way, to say that, Levi's going to be a starter. He's going to be in that starting rotation. You have your starters, you'll have your 11 guys, depending on what defense you're playing. He's going to be a starter in some sub packages. He's going to be a starter in some packages, period. If he stays healthy, when he stays healthy, Levi, the way that he played in 2024, if he gets that back, I promise you he's going to be a wrecking ball. And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, this is just Davenport all over again. Like, he's constantly injured. He had a really good year in 24. And unfortunately, the knee happened. You can't do anything about it. But if that player, now having his contract told and having to come back for an extra season, can stay healthy and get healthy, he is going to be a problem on the right or the left side of that defense. He can play inside out, outside in, and he gives this team a lot of flexibility with his size, his speed, his power, his technique. And look, he's been in the NFL, 5 seasons now? 4 or 5 seasons now? I think it's 5. There's no reason why you wouldn't want that player on the field. I think that we've all seen him perform well at times, and he just needs a year that really he's healthy and that the defense around him is as good or better than it has been, and I think it will be. I think there's a lot of really good players. This defense is really top-heavy now in the defensive end room. It's top-heavy in the defensive line room, and I think that that's a really good position to be in. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think our practice squad is going to have more defensive players on it this year than in years past. Defensive linemen, defensive ends. You're going to have some more vets on this roster that you won't have to worry about going to another team. If they got those handshake deals in and they say, look, I'm going to stick around through the season. I know if there's a team that I can play for, it's this one. And when I get an opportunity to play, I want to play on this one. And when we get an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, I want to be on this one. So I think the Lions are in a very good position with the vets and the vets that are going to stick around, on the practice squad throughout the rest of the season. So keep your eyes out for Levi, man. I need this guy to stay healthy because I know he's a wrecking ball. We've seen it. It just has to stay consistent, and that's the most important thing is consistency. Most competition. I don't know what some of these analysts are talking about because I heard it over the weekend that I'll be done with Dan here. We'll move on. I don't know what some of these analysts are even talking about because they're saying that this roster might be the most deflated roster that we've ever had, that we have seen in Dan and Brad's now 6th season. I wholeheartedly disagree. I feel like this is, I've said it multiple times, this is the most competition that I think that we've ever had on this roster. Dan feels the same way. Brad feels the same way. And I'll tell you, my diagnosis of this team in the past hasn't been wrong. in 2024 and in 2025 when I went to training camp and I said, look, this defense is the best defense we've ever seen. And it was. Unfortunately, a lot of injuries happened. And when that happened, the defense kind of went along with it. I mean, you can't have, 15 injuries to your defense and expect to still have a good defense, right? You've lost just about every starter along your defensive line. Well, pretty much every starter but Jack Campbell in 2024. So I'm feeling the same way this year. Now it's going to take me going to camp to see it, right? And to see what they're doing differently. I know that I was one of the first ones to say that I see defensive philosophy changes, and it wasn't just me thinking that. It was a conversation that I had with my guy, and then also looking at the roster and who we saved and who we brought back and the guys that they brought in and the free agency acquisitions and yada, 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 right? And then the draft really solidified it. So I'm assuming that we'll be locked on with that one. That'll be a rock lock that we're going to have a different defense this year schematically. And I think that that's a good change. We're not going to be stuck in the base. We're not going to be stuck in the single post, on defense. We're going to be doing some things differently. I think there's going to be a lot more sub-package type of work and type of schemes. The philosophy's changing, and that's because Dan wants to win. And they can't just be stuck into running, blitz on 54% of the downs. They can't be stuck in running base. They need to change things up, and they need to disguise what they're doing. When you're not disguising what you're doing, that's when you get beat. And I think the Lions just became too vanilla, too predictable, and it's time to shake it all up. And so I'm excited about this year for those reasons. And again, the hype, man, the hype can be real, but at the same time, it's not needed right now. These guys just want to go to work. They need to go to work. And at the end of the day, that work is what's going to come out on the other end to a polished product in September. I know that we have the right mentality. I know that we have the right coach and the right GM. Barring what all these other, people like to say about Brad Holmes, you can't give me another GM right now. If you said that I could have any GM in the league, I wouldn't want a different one. And so that's my next question to you guys this morning. I'd love to know in the comments right now, or in the chat right now, in the comments later. First poll of the day was, are you worried about Kirby Joseph not getting any reps in OTAs? Only 24 votes. Come on, people, let's get the votes up. So 67% of you are not worried. So we have, a 2-to-1 split here. 2/3 of you believe that's fine. And so good. That means that you have positivity this year. And that's great. I'm a little bit concerned about it because it's never good that you're not getting, some reps early in the season after 9 months off. I'm a little bit worried about it, but I'm not going to be doom and gloom about it. I'm worried. But the next poll question this morning, if you could have any other GM than Brad Holmes, would you take it? I'm not going to write a novel here, but I think you understand the question. If you could have any other GM than Brad Holmes, would you take it? Yes or no? You know what? And in the comments or in the chat right now, tell me who it is. Like if you think that you wanted a different GM, who would it be? If you felt strongly about that. And look, I just don't see it. I don't see another GM that fits his team. I don't see another GM that has done as good of a job that Brad Holmes has done. I know a lot of people don't understand what a GM's job is or how effective he's been. I mean, for a guy that has gone out and nailed, roughly what was the number, 78% hit rate with guys that he's drafted that have become starters that have also now taken on second contracts. That's pretty difficult. Producing about a dozen All-Pro Pro Bowlers, that's pretty difficult to do. And then at the end of the day, the average league hit rate is about 52%. So he's far and away better than any other GM out there when it comes to drafting. I mean, he's at the top of the board each and every single year with the players that he's brought in. The one thing that I'll circle back on with the draft, and there's been a lot of conversation that 24 and 25 drafts were just not that great. If you get 2 really good players out of every draft, you've done your job. Like that, you can't expect more than that. We have to take into consideration that players in the draft all require development. Every single one of these players is a developing player. In the first round, you have anywhere from 12 to 15, first round true blue chip type grades in every draft. There's usually at least 12. The top end, there's probably 15 or 16 in some drafts. Those players still require development. Those players still don't come out and just play lights out in their first year. Maybe 2 or 3 of them will. So think about that. 2 or 3 players out of what is there? 267 players drafted or something like that, or 276? I don't know. If you're only getting 2 or 3 or 4 players every year that are really playing lights out, that should tell you something. So all the players that you're drafting, middle of the second round and beyond, expect that that's a 2-year development. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, expect that could be a 2.5 to 3-year development. Now, if you win the lottery and you have some players that are developing faster and they're playing better earlier, that's just a win, man. That's just a win. It's not expected. Of course, Dan and Brad will tell you that they expect these players to play at a high level, but they also have reality in front of them, which is we see this every year, the hype, and then the hype dissipates and disappears come week 1 when you realize these are rookies. And I think that Brad, said it, just a few weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. I can't remember. When he was asked about, maybe it was Dan. They were asked about Blake Miller being a starter this year, and was asking about the development and whatnot. And essentially, the words were, he's still a rookie. He still has to develop. He still has to fight for a spot. So that's where I'm going to transition to next, and that is over the weekend. Last week during practice, the Lions trotted out their offensive line. And Dan Campbell, he's really pleased. He said he was really pleased with the offensive line so far. He said, quote, I like those guys. But who were the starters, right? What had happened? So Dave Burkett put out something. We'll kind of go through his article here briefly because he put out some things that I want to hit on. One, you have to look at who we cut ties with, right? We lost Taylor Decker. We lost Graham Glasgow. And then we moved Penei Sewell to the left side. And then we drafted Blake Miller. We also added 4 veterans that will be starters or key backups. And then the new center in Cade Mays. That's a lot of changeover. It's damn near, 80% changeover on your offensive line. So Dan Campbell on Friday said, quote, I like those guys. And there again, he says, it's early, but Cade, man, he's a good-looking dude, man. He's a big man. He's built right. He moves pretty good. And now it's just getting up to speed with our terminology and Mike points, all of that. So what's interesting is Blake Miller was not out there. And I warned y'all about this, that Blake Miller was not going to be a starter from day 1. He would have to earn it like everybody else. Who was the starter last week in OTAs? Larry Borom. So Larry Borom took the starting snaps at right tackle early in OTAs. Now, Blake Miller got his fair share of snaps. He split some time with Borom, and it was during 11-on-11 jog throughs that he was seen out there. And then you have the new additions with Juice Scruggs playing at left guard. Remember what I mentioned earlier in the spring, that when we brought Juice in, he's going to compete. Now, Mahogany was inserted right away at left guard, Tate Ratledge at right guard, Cade Mays at center, Penei Sewell at left, and Larry Borom at right. But Juice Scruggs was the immediate backup to Christian Mahogany. And as I alluded to in the spring, I said that Juice is going to be competing for a guard spot. Now, I don't think that he's going to be able to unseat Tate Ratledge, but we've seen crazier things happen. If he's playing extremely well, could it happen? Possibly, but I don't expect it. But Mahogany is going to have his work cut out for him going up against a vet in someone that was drafted pretty early. It was second-round pick. I always forget. And someone that can play pretty well when he stays healthy. So he's going to have his work cut out for him. Also working with the second team, like I said, he had Juice Scruggs and Seth McLaughlin. Now, this is a player that would have been a former first-round pick, or I'm sorry, the former first center drafted in the draft had he, not been injured, but it didn't go that way. He was a UDFA. He was picked up by, I forget which team, but the Lions ended up snaking him, picked him up last year, And so here he is. He's healthy. He's ready to go. He was working on the second team in pre-practice periods. And Devin Cochran was also at left tackle. Mason Miller was at right guard. If you remember earlier in the spring, I had mentioned Mason Miller was a player I expected to get some tackle work, but don't be surprised if you see the guy at guard. And so he's getting a little bit of an opportunity now to see what it's like at the guard position. I don't think he's going to stay there. Ben Barch also competing right now for a left guard spot behind Mahogany and Scruggs. So Ben Barch, if you remember, he was a tackle, I believe, for the most of his career. I think that's where the majority of his snap counts came from. Let me just look him up real quick. It's been a minute since we talked about Ben Barch. It's been a minute since I've signed into PFF, too. I'm kind of trying to walk away from it. Take a look at his snap counts here. So last year, 2025, 223 snaps. He did play left guard a little bit last year for the majority of his snaps. 2024, he was primarily field goal, extra point, a little bit of left guard. 2023, yeah, man, he got 16 snaps at center, more at left guard. And then special teams. I thought Barch was a tackle. He's a guard. So I had that wrong. He's a guard. So interesting, though, right? He's getting some opportunity early, probably third team for Barch, but he can compete. You know, he can compete with the rest of the guys and can carve out an opportunity for himself on this roster. But look, this roster's loaded now. This offensive line went from a pain in our ass, right? Last year was rough to watch, to now it should be a significant strength. We're not getting a lot of love, you know, from the early season predictions and, you know, the rankings and the ratings, you know, where they see our offense, where they see our defense, and that's fine. You know what? I don't care. If you call us the worst offense in the league, great. I don't care. That's just going to give these guys more motivation. And to be honest with you, I don't think the players give a rat's ass either. I really don't. I think that they know who they are. I think they know what they have on this team, and I think they're going to play like it at the end of the day. So interesting that, you know, we're seeing Blake Miller having to work for it all right away. Here's what Dan Campbell also said, you know, talking about getting younger and deeper up front, and they believe that they have a unit that could be even better with Sewell anchoring you know, Goff's blind side, which it's an interesting take. Look, I think that Sewell's going to be fine. I've used the term muscle memory often. It's going to take him a minute. You know, it's just getting the footwork down. I think outside of that, football's football to Penei Sewell, and he's played that position before. But here's what he had said, again, recapping what Dan Campbell said just a few moments ago. He said, quote, talking about Sewell, he's been working at it even back at home before we started off season. That's great news. And then once I gave him the word, obviously he went all in. Campbell said, so it'll be like riding a bike for him. Will it be things he'll have to learn? Yeah, of course there will be. But I mean, he's played left. That's muscle memory. He played a lot of left in college and for us in 2021, those first few games. And he still took reps at left even over the last 5 years. So that'll be seamless. Sewell can do it all. I believe so too. I think that he's going to jump in this thing, and he's going to be running, man. He's going to be running right away. So offensive line's looking good. What else is on the list today? We went through Dan Campbell, talked about the offensive line a little bit. Jared Goff we'll get into in just a moment. Drew Petzing. And Jared's going to talk a little bit about Drew Petzing as well. But Drew Petzing is going to be a breath of fresh air to this offense. You know, I get it that a lot of people were concerned about Drew Petzing. They saw a guy that was only an offensive coordinator, I think, for 3 or 4 seasons. And he led an offense that had some trouble. But when you look deeper at the numbers and you look a little bit closer at what this offense was able to do behind Drew Petzing, it was, you know, averaging 5 yards a carry when your offensive line wasn't the greatest. I think that ranks second in the league over the last couple of years. It was taking a young rookie in Trey McBride, who's a damn good football player. He was the only or one of the only weapons left on the offense and racking up 1,200 yards, in a season last year. That is extremely difficult to do when you just lost 5 out of the 6 guys that are your main starters on that offense. They're all injured, including James Conner, their primary running back. So you had Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison has been okay. He hasn't been great. It's not like he's been, garnering double teams or anything, but Trey McBride, just turned into an absolute monster. So Drew took what he had, developed a scheme around it, and it worked. Now, did they win a lot of ball games? No. Were they a great football team? No. But was that Drew Petzing's fault? Absolutely not. That's the head coach's problem. I think that Drew did exactly what he needed to do when he needed to do it, worked with the players that he had, and he's going to do the same thing in Detroit. He's creating a formula in Detroit that is not, overly, how do I say it? It's not, he doesn't have to depend on just one player, right? Like, I don't know how to say it a different way right now. He doesn't have to just depend on one player. He has so many different levels of weapons and artillery and opportunity all across the offense. So having that ability, like Jahmyr Gibbs and Pacheco, I think that you guys are going to be shocked when Isaiah Pacheco gets the football this year and what he's going to be able to provide to this team. I think it's going to be better than what David Montgomery did. I truly do. I truly think that his ability with the speed that he has, the power that he runs behind those pads with, I think that Pacheco is going to be, just as fun to watch as Jahmyr Gibbs at times. Obviously, no one is as electric and as fun to watch as Jahmyr Gibbs, but you got a guy that is twitchy, he has speed, and he runs with purpose and intent behind those pads. And Gibbs is like the total opposite. He runs with just effortless ability, man. He's so smooth in everything that he does. And if you watch the two, running the drills side by side, you see one that is more purposeful, intent and power, aggressive in Pacheco, and then Gibbs, like I said, he's kind of the glider. He's smooth, but he's also intent and twitchy in what he does. So it's fun to watch both of these guys. But I'm telling you right now, if both of these guys win for 1,000+ yards, I expect Gibbs to on the ground, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised one bit. And the one thing that I had mentioned early off in the spring is, we started to see what Gibbs could be. Dan Campbell shocked me a couple weeks ago when he said that, we're just scratching the surface with Jahmyr Gibbs. And it's something that I mentioned early in the spring as well, that I don't know if 77 receptions is scratching the surface. I don't know being a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL as a running back is scratching the surface. To me, that sounds like you have a top 20 wide receiver and a top 2 running back on your team. And if you're thinking you just scratched the surface, he could outperform J-Mo this year. Think about that for a moment. If you really believe that Gibbs has a long way to go in the pass game, which I think he does because there's a lot of things that he hasn't been utilized in, like having 2 running backs on the field at the same time, having Pacheco in the back, swinging Gibbs out in the slot. We haven't seen any of that yet. And so when that opportunity happens and you're putting Gibbs in a position to win, could you imagine if he goes for 1,000 and 1,000? I think it's possible. I think he could go 1,500 and 1,000 this year. That's over half the offense if it happens. And to think that you still have a 1,000-yard receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you have a 1,000-yard receiver in Jamison Williams, and you have at least a 700-yard receiver in Isaac Tesla, and we still haven't even gotten to Sam Laporte yet. So when these people, these analysts, these writers are saying that this team is not as talented as what it was a year ago, it's more talented. It's one of the most talented teams in the league. And you talk about core players, you have more than 20 guys on this roster that are starters on every team in this league, and you probably have 10 that are game changers. And so I want to throw that back to Daniel Jeremiah next, because he made a list. He's checking it twice. And we're going to find out who's naughty or nice here in 2026. I'm going to take a brief break. When we get back, we're going to break down the Lions roster based on Daniel Jeremiah's list. And yeah, we'll be right back. Okay, so Daniel Jeremiah put out a list, and I think I have it available here on Twitter. There we go. So this was his post on May 26th, and I was kind of off quite a bit over the last several weeks. Got a lot to do, so I missed this, and it was brought up sometime over the weekend, and I thought, you know what? I think this is a great conversational piece to kind of look at where the Lions are, but where have we been? And have we had the players, according to him, to win a Super Bowl? So Daniel Jeremiah back on May 26 says, I like to revisit this concept for every NFL team. To build a championship foundation, you need to fill these 12 spots. Quarterback 1. Well, we've had Jared Goff now entering our 6th season. Offensive playmakers, 3. Quality offensive linemen, 3. Pass rushers, 2, and defensive playmakers, 3. Calls it a fun exercise to compare teams with this focus in mind. So my question to you would be this. How many... Oh, I didn't mean to kick off of that. How many years have we met that threshold? Now, I know immediately what a lot of you are going to point to, and you're going to say, but Will... we haven't had pass rushers. And I would say, yes, we have. And we absolutely had 2 of the best last year. So last season, we were the only team that had 2 players in the top 11 with, I think it was 10-plus sacks, AQM and Aiden Hutchinson. I think AQM had, 10.5, Aiden had 12.5. So we definitely had 2 pass rushers last season. And to enter the season in 23 and 24, we had the pass rushers that, some ended up getting injured, including Aiden Hutchinson. And even before that, let me go back to the Lions roster history. Let me get this pulled up here. Do the historical look at their starting lineups. So let me pull out his tweet. So quarterback 1, we've definitely had Jared Goff in the fold. So you got to mark that one off, right? So in 2025, need a fresh piece of paper. 2025, QB, check. Offensive playmakers. Well, in 2025, we had Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, I don't understand why this is not showing all of the playmakers. This is missing half of them. So Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. So that's at least 4. What am I missing for playmakers? I think we can just go with at least those 4. 2024, we had the same playmakers, except, last year we also had David Montgomery, so that's 5. 2024, we had David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. There's another 5. 2023, he had Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. And, I mean, Josh Reynolds was pretty decent. He was a playmaker. You could say we had 6. So I think we're pretty well covered on the offensive side of the football. So offensive playmakers, check. Offensive line. Well, in 2025, I think that we failed with the offensive line. You had Penei Sewell. Taylor Decker was not healthy, but he's still quality. Tate Ratledge was still quality, but he was a rookie. So I would say, I would give us a failing grade for offensive line last year, but we had 3 quality offensive linemen. I'm not going to say that Graham Glasgow's not a good football player, because had he been playing guard, I think it's a different story. Had we had Frank Ragnow in there, I think it's a different story. But in 2024, I mean, we had probably one of the best offensive lines in the league. You had Kevin Zeitler, Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow. I mean, there's your 3. And then you had Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow. So I would give us a solid 4 players if you want to combine Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow to make up 1 player. I would say that we had 4 players on the offensive line. In 2023, again, it was still an offensive line that was pretty stout, right? Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker was playing pretty well. Jonah Jackson was pretty good, in that season. And Graham Glasgow was actually pretty good in that season. So I would say in 23, we had 5. We had 5 studs, but let's just go with 4. We'll combine Jonah and Graham to make up that 4th. And I'm only going back 3 years. To kind of give us an idea of where we are, where we've been. All right, so how about QB? Here we go. QB, we're good. Jared Goff has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league since 2022. All right, so how about pass rusher? Well, since 2022, we've had Aiden Hutchinson in every year. So we've had 1. In 2024, we had Aiden and we had Zadarius Smith. I'm going to pull up our lads here, because our lads, let's get signed in. One second, y'all. I just got to get signed into our lads. Being finicky. What in the world? There we go. I think I need to upgrade my memory, man. Sometimes stuff just sticks. Okay, so if I go to the Lions, let's go back to, it's sticking again. What in the world? Unbelievable. I can't even sign in quick enough, and my ads blocker hits it, and they don't like it. There we go. I think we're good now. All right, let's go back to 2023. We're going to we'll just go to October 1st of 23. So the goals we're looking at defensive ends. John Kaminsky, I mean, he was not a big-time playmaker, but he was okay. We had Romeo Quara. He was okay. We had Aiden, and we had Charles Harris, who was okay. We had Levi Onwuzurike, who was injured. So, okay, you could say in 23 maybe we didn't have all of the pass rushers necessary, but man, we went to the NFC Championship game with that roster. So I think that they played well enough. But in 23, okay, so let's say pass rushers, we'll say we had 1.5. 2024. We'll go to October again. You had Josh Paschal, who actually played pretty well that year. I mean, he didn't come down with 10 sacks, but that's not the the bar to beat there. I mean, it's just how well did you play? We had James Houston, who played extremely well. No, that was 23. In 23, we had James Houston, so I need to go back and put 2. So 23, we had it. We had 2 because we had James Houston in the second half, and I mean he was neck and neck with Aiden Hutchinson with sacks. Now that I remember that season, in 2024, you had Josh Paschal, Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Mekhi Wingo. We're missing some players here. Their archive is missing some players. Levi Onwuzurike, he was playing pretty well that year. Josh Paschal, Aiden Hutchinson. So I would say in 24 we had it. Now, I don't think that what he is saying is that you need 2 of the most dominant pass rushers in the league. But I'll give us a 1.5 in 24. I would say that we had 2, but I'll give us a 1.5. And in 2025, I'm definitely going to give us 2. So out of the last 3 years, I think that we've met what he has asked for with pass rusher at least 2 out of the last 3 seasons. I know for a fact that Daniel Jeremiah is not saying that you need to go out and have 2 top 10 pass rushers or even 2 top 20 or even 2 top 32 pass rushers because it's unlikely, right? There's how many teams in the league actually have 2 pass rushers that have 10 plus sacks? How many? 2? And remember, we're not talking 3-4 defense outside linebackers. We're talking rush ends, defensive ends, edge, right? Guys that are meant to go in and set an edge and then get a sack if it's ability, if the ability is there. Set the edge and shut down the run game. And the Lions were one of the best run defense teams over the last 3 seasons. Last year, things fell off with injury. 24 things fell off with injury. But we've been one of the best run defense teams in the league. And you have to put a lot of that on what your defensive ends are doing and then how your safeties and your corners are playing because really their responsibility is the edge, right? The from the edge to the sideline. I know a lot of people think that it's just the defensive end's job to shut down, the run game, outside of the tackle. It's really not, but if you have a good one that can go sideline to sideline, then they will. And if they set the right edge and they don't get too deep and open up a big hole, it can go both ways. It can be their fault, and they can also help out, in the run game and do a really good job. But I don't think that Daniel Jeremiah is saying that you need to have 2 of the best, because if that's what he is saying, then nobody would have it. Maybe 2 teams in the entire league would have it, and the Lions had it last year. You can't tell me that, unless you're a 3-4 outside linebacker type of defense like the Denver Broncos, they would be the only one that has done it for the last couple of seasons with a lot of sacks, but they haven't won a Super Bowl. They almost got there last year, right? Was that last year? I think it was last year. But the injuries happen to their quarterback. So you can't tell me that pass rush is the only way to get to a Super Bowl. Because if that's the case, and we've talked about this every year. We haven't talked about pass rush in a while, actually. But every year, I've gone through it. And if you look at the teams that are winning, like they're in the middle of all teams with sacks. They're not at the top. So if you have to have two of the best, then the Lions should have won the Super Bowl last year, right? Or the Broncos should have won the Super Bowl last year. But that didn't happen. And it didn't happen because that's not the only answer. All right, the last part of this is defensive playmakers outside of pass rushers. So this part I don't understand is if you're going to exclude pass rush from the playmakers, really that means you need 5 playmakers on the defense. And we've absolutely had playmakers. So if we go back to 2023, you had BB, definitely a playmaker. I should have spent some time on this to really kind of put all this together before I talked about it, but maybe I'll do a video, get all my thoughts together, and break it down a little bit. So Kirby Joseph had a hell of a year in 23. So we had Kirby. He had an even better year in 24, so we put him in 24. We had Branch. He had a hell of a year in 23 and in 24. Who else on the defense? Alex Anzalone. He's a playmaker. AA, 23, 24, and 25, even though he got injured in 24. Branch and Kirby were absolute playmakers in 2025, but they got injured. So you still have to put them on there because it's about assembling the roster. It's not whether they got injured. So you had Kirby and Branch in 25 as well. So far, just in those 3 seasons, Kirby, Branch, and AA in all 3. But we had more than that. We had way more than that. Let's go back to just 2023. You had Jack Campbell. We can put Jack in every year. In 24, 25, and 23. Now, the last 2 years, for sure, Jack was one of the best in the league. In 2023, he just got cooking, man. He just lit his fire. Levon Zrike, we had him in 24. He played pretty well. He was a playmaker. Aleem McNeil in 23. He was a playmaker. One of the best tackles in the league. Defensive tackles in the league. Going back to 2023, Ifeatu Melifonwu had a pretty decent year. He was a playmaker. So I'm gonna throw him in there. We also had Broderick Martin. I mean, bar none, one of the best I'm just kidding. Playmakers in 2023. Who else did we have in 23 that comes across your mind here this morning? I'm just kind of going through some of the archival dates here. Let me hit December and see what changed because we had a lot of things that changed. We had Cam Sutton. I forgot about Cam. We had Cam in 2023. So I'm sorry, Daniel Jeremiah, I love the guy, appreciate the guy, but this is why I disagree, because in 2023 alone, we had the QB, we had 6 offensive playmakers, we had 4 offensive linemen, and so far 7 additional defensive playmakers and 2 pass rushers. He just said you need 12 spots. The Lions had 6, 7, 11, 13, 20. 20 spots on that team that were all way better than average. More than half of them were league leaders or in the top 5 conversation. So I disagree. Now, that was our best year yet. But what did we do in 24? So far in 24... Let me go back to 24 and pull up a kind of end of the year look here. Go back to December of 24. You had, God, what a year that was. All those injuries, man. All of those injuries. And I haven't even finished 25 yet. I mean, just thinking of players like what's his name? The corner. Well, I can't remember his name right now. Where's he at? Rock Yassin. Amik Robertson. Big time playmakers, both those guys. Hell, even Thomas Harper was one of the better safeties in the league when he came in and played. He was a playmaker. Roy Lopez was a playmaker on the defensive line. Now, again, he didn't have 20 sacks. I don't even think he had 3, but he was a playmaker. He was shutting down the run game. Tyleek Williams was a playmaker. That dude was making play after play last year. And we did the rankings for all rookie defensive linemen. Tyleek was the best defensive lineman out of all rookies last year. He may not have had the most sacks, but ranking-wise, when you look at what he did and how he performed, he was one of the best, if not the best, rookie defensive lineman last year. All right, so in 2024, so we had 20 and 23. 2024, we had Ali McNeil, Zadarius Smith, Jack Campbell, Carlton Davis, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Amik Robertson, so that's 7 for defensive playmakers. Levi Onwuzurike, he had a really good year, so that's 8. We went 15 and 2 that year. Offensive line, I gave us 4, so that's 12, 13 and a half, 18 and a half. That's 19 and a half playmakers. So we should have won the Super Bowl both years. Injuries are a big problem. And then last year, you had Aiden, you had AQM. Ali McNeil did have a good year. He was coming off injury. DJ Reader had a solid year. I wouldn't say he was a playmaker. Alex Anzalone, playmaker. Jack Campbell, clearly, all pro. Again, you had BB and Kirby on the roster to start the year, so you met the need, but then they got injured. DJ Reed, you had the player. He got injured, so that's 7. Tyleek Williams had a great year. Rock Yassin had a good year. He was a playmaker. Hell, even Avonte Maddox had a great year last year. That's 10 guys on the defense. 10. So I'm sorry, man. I disagree. But if we go back to the root question or what Daniel Jeremiah is trying to say here, is you need to at least fill those gaps, those positions, those 12 players, 2 or 3 on the defense. 5 on the defense, 3 playmakers, and 2 pass rushers. Well, I've named plenty of players. If you really wanted to pull just 3 playmakers out of there, you could. If you really wanted to pull 2 pass rushers out of there, you could. At least 1.5. If you were to combine 2 guys together and you could call them playmakers or whatever. Offensive linemen, I think that we've had 3 in every year. Offensive playmakers, we've had more than 3 in every year. And quarterback has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league for damn near, 3.5, 4 years. So we've had the team. We've had more than what he's saying. So why are we not making the Super Bowl is the question. Why are we not able to get to the other side? Well, I think that there's one major thing that he didn't mention, and that is health. You can have all the playmakers you want, okay? Look at what the Packers did last year. They bring in Micah Parsons. They were playing pretty well. And then he busts up his leg, right? His knee. So you can have all the players you want in preseason. If they don't make it to February healthy, you can forget about it. So it really doesn't matter how many players you fit on your roster that are playmakers. It matters how they finish the season. Because once you get through those 12 players, if they all get injured, then you definitely can forget about your year. But the Lions have lost more than 12 players every year, and more than 12 players that were big-time contributors on this team. So I think for those reasons, I understand what he's saying, but I think it needs a little bit more context, and I think there needs to be a little bit more understanding to the fact that health is probably the most important thing. Every team that typically wins a Super Bowl is one of the most healthy teams in the league. All of these teams could win the Super Bowl. All of these players are extremely good football players. If you were to have, a team of B players, but they're all healthy at the end of the year, I would say that they could win the Super Bowl just as easily as anybody else. And I'm not just throwing shade, but I think health is the most important. I really do. All right. Agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments. Chat. What do you think? How do you feel? How do you interpret what Daniel Jeremiah is saying there? Poll question earlier. If you could have any other GM than Brad Holmes, would you take it? And 24 votes yielded an answer of 92% no and 8% yes. So that means 2 people voted yes. I'm surprised. But then again, I'm not. I think that there's some people that believe that Brad is not the right answer. He's been the right answer. He's done a hell of a job. Oh, poopy pants. I forgot about that. That's hilarious. Talking about James Houston. Okay. Tom Brady. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Again, over a period of years, but there's 53 guys on the active roster. I learned this, again, over a period of years, but there's 53 guys on the active roster. And there's now 15 guys on the practice squad. So there's 68 players. But those practice squad players are important because if anybody on the active roster gets hurt, they can get elevated to the squad. Well, there was times where these 15 guys would do really well in practice. And they'd be practicing and you'd be like a scout team receiver. And I saw this happen a lot. These scout team receivers would come in and practice with, the scout team. And they do really well. And I'd be watching. I'm like, man, we got to get that guy. Like, let's get him up on offense. He's making a lot of plays. That's Darrelle Revis he's getting open on. Like, we got to do something. Then all of a sudden, we're like, hey, man, you're doing really well. You got to come over here and deal with the pressure of succeeding now that you have expectation. And these guys are like, they weren't prepared for it. So whatever we saw in practice against where there was not a lot of pressure, now, when they're put in a situation where there's an expectation for performance, they've never had to personally deal with that. And then they fail. And then what I realized was a lot of guys in those practice squads, they don't want to be elevated to the roster. They're very happy living this life where they could tell their family and friends, which I have no problem with that. Like, there's no problem. Like, you would just assume, though, that if you're on the practice squad, you'd want to be at the top. But the reality is a lot of guys don't want the pressure of dealing with top.
Tom probably should have not have opened his mouth here. Like, this is bad. Being a part owner of a team, and this is UFC's champion mindset interview. And this was like the first podcast release back in February of 2026. So about 4 months ago, this interview was done with, I believe, Daniel Cormier. And so I was all good up until the last 10 seconds. I understand what he's saying. And this is why, Dan Campbell is saying, hey, we're not doing the hype, because you're going to have it every year where you've got these practice squad guys or guys that you're expected that are going to go to the practice squad, guys that are not expected to make the roster, that are playing really well. Now, the pressure I think he's talking about is multifold. One, you have the pressure of a game. You're in a game situation, pressure of the fans. You've played in plenty of games before. That probably isn't a ton of pressure. But then you have the pressure of, well, it's legit snap to whistle now. So now you do have pressure getting after the quarterback. You do have pressure trying to defend that receiver or trying to, take down that running back. There's pressure there. It's not 7-on-7s, right? This is 11-on-11. It's full go. It's padded. It's time to go. And then there's the other side of the pressure, which I get. You have that innate pressure that is built within you that now you feel the pressure. I have to perform. I'm now under the big lights, the big stage. I have to perform for my coach, for my family, for my friends, for my team. And so I believe in the pressure. I do. But where he lost me was saying that these guys on the practice squad don't want that pressure. They're happy just making $250,000 a year, doing everything that the team is doing. You win a ring if the team wins a ring. Yeah, that probably wasn't good to say. And he also got something else wrong. There's not 15 guys on the practice squad. There's 16. There's 69 guys on the roster. There's 17 if you have an international pathway player. As a owner of a team, you would think you would know this. But there's 69 guys, not 68. Now, I get it that it changed, with the whole COVID rules and all that stuff, that it changed. But this is something that Tom really just stuck his foot in his mouth and probably shouldn't have said that, because now he has to look at every guy on the roster when he's out on the field and doing whatever he does with the team for the Raiders. He has to look at all those guys, and all those guys are going to look at him and say, so you don't think that I want to play? You don't think that I want to be here? You don't think that I don't want to start on Sunday? You don't think that I want to earn a real check? You could make $250,000 doing something else. Yeah, you might not make it in 6 months, or 17 weeks or 18 weeks, but I don't believe that. And Dan Skipper put out a tweet, which Skipper probably shouldn't have tweeted that, because he is a coach now in the NFL. He probably shouldn't have tweeted where he called it the most bullshit take he's ever heard or something like that. I would have pulled it up, but I forgot to this morning. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that the practice squad guys really don't want to play? Don't want to be there? I'll tell you what, man. The guys that are on the Lions practice squad, Dan said it many, many times, and he better not say it this year. I don't know if he has yet already. But he better not say that all of these players are needed because they're going to have to play, right? Because he said that every year, and every year it freaking happens. I hope he doesn't say that. But he's right. You want these players that are on your roster and the extension of the roster on the practice squad to be just as good as or developing players that will be good at some point to be able to play in place of players that do get injured, because you're going to need them. And I guess beyond this, you can put that away. But you guys let me know in the comments, obviously in the chat right now, did Tom Brady make a big mistake here by saying what he just said? Because I feel like he did. And I think that some players like Dan Skipper, they clearly took exception to it. Dan wanted to play. Thankfully he made the roster one time in his career, but he wanted to play. That dude was as scrappy and as tough as anybody. He wanted to be out there with his guys. But anyway, let's talk about the season for a moment. We'll kind of wrap up the day with this. I think I got to everything. Ali McNeil. I didn't get to Ali McNeil. Maybe I'll save Ali McNeil for tomorrow. Yeah, I'll save Ali McNeil for tomorrow. But I want to talk about the season. And I should have some more audio to kind of go along with this for tomorrow. I just need a little bit of time to clip some audio. We have a very long season, and adding that 17th game it's a lot more real than I think what a lot of fans have really kind of understood about the game. And I'm not saying you don't understand the game, because I'm in the same boat. When the 17th game was added, I really never felt like it would make that big of a difference. That, okay, you're not playing in a preseason game and now you're playing just one extra regular season game. No big deal, right? Fair trade. No, it's really not. It's not a fair trade. And so now that we're talking about going into an 18th game here in the next few years, that's big. And I see the difference with the reason why I'm talking about this is I see the difference with what Dan is trying to do right now and what Brad is trying to give Dan the ability to do, which is to have the players available that are good, right? They can all play, but it's those hockey line shifts that I started to talk about a week or so ago that I think is going to be a big reason as to why this team can play at a higher rate deeper into the season. Very simply, without the right rotations, without the right depth, it's pretty tough to go an entire 16-week season, let alone a 17-week season. For guys like Aiden Hutchinson, that they just he's got to accept the fact that he can't play 95% of the reps. He needs to get down to like 90, 87, 88, somewhere in that range to be able to go an extra game to 17 weeks. Now, I didn't do the math, but let's just kind of do the math right now. If before, if your defense runs, 1,100 snaps in a year, that's about 65 snaps in a game. You need to take those 65 snaps off throughout the season to be able to go, a full 17th game. So let's just take 1,100 minus 65, divide that by 1,100. That's 94% of the snaps. Well, that's about where Aiden is. He's somewhere between that 94 to 97% range, depending on the year. Well, he needs to go a little bit further. I think he needs to double that time off to be able to carry his energy into the fourth quarter as well as the 17th game and then into the playoffs, right? So let's take 130 snaps, divide that by 1,100. That gets you to that 88% range. Now, I don't know what's built into his contract, like he has to play so many snaps a year or, have, X amount of tackles or sacks or whatever, all of the, the riders in the contract, the escalators in the contract. I think that if you're a smart team now, you're not going to limit these guys and say, hey, you have to play this many snaps. I think that that's a bad way to put contracts together. I think that you should build the team to know that, hey, I'm going to put you in there as much as I can, but I need to think long term. I need to think about week 17, week 18, week 19 and 20 and 21, getting into the, deep into the playoffs and, eventually into the Super Bowl. Just going into the playoffs, you're adding another 200-300 snaps potentially. So how do you manage that? And how do you take care of this player's body and mental side of the game so that they can manage it, so that they can go that deep? And this is where this year's roster, just the Lions 90-man roster and where I see it going into the 53. I see the Lions adding more players to their practice squad this year, what I mentioned earlier, that are also going to get an opportunity to play. I'm not saying that Aiden's going to take a whole game off. But what I would say is, if you have a sizable lead into the third quarter, call it 2.5, scores, 2 TDs and a field goal. I don't think that there's a reason why you really want Aiden out there on first and second down. Put him in on third down. Have him play as much as he needs to play in the beginning of the game. If you get a sizable lead, get him the hell out. I realize he's going to want to get his sacks and things of that nature, but try to give him more of a rest. This is where you can get the younger guys in, the backups. You replace them with the starters and kind of flip-flop so that you now give them an opportunity to take some snaps away from Aiden and your other starter, whoever that's going to be, whether it's Derek Moore or DJ Wanham, who I'm expecting to be the starter, and allow them to save that energy for later in the season. I know it all sounds great and gravy on, just talking about it. I don't feel like this is how these teams operate, though. I think how they operate is, I hired you to do a job, I'm paying you a shit ton of money to do the job, and you're going to play. And I just feel like that's the wrong way to go about it. I think that if you manage it right and you get these players, some rest throughout the season, it's only going to help you win. So if the goal is truly to win a Super Bowl, I would sit each and every one of my star players down and I would say, what is your goal this year? And if every single one of them doesn't say to win a Super Bowl, which they'll say, obviously I want to stay healthy and win a Super Bowl. I want to be the best player I can. I want to be the best leader I can. Then they should understand that, okay, if that's what you want to do, how are you going to get there? What is it that you could do differently this year that can help the team? How can I help you help the team? The answer should always be, look, if I really don't need to be in the game, save my body. The more energy these guys have, the less hits they take, the better they're going to be. And so that's where the conversation has to be, look, does it really make more sense for you to win the sack championship or have the most sacks this year or a Super Bowl? It should always be Super Bowl. It should always be team over individual awards. And if players understand that, which I think a lot of players do, then get my ass on the sideline, give me a break when we can afford to take a break. I don't think that that's going to hurt the player long term. I don't think it's going to give the player less drive. If anything, I think it's the exact opposite. I think it's going to help the player play, longer into the season, have more energy when they need the energy, which is the fourth quarter and then late in the year. So I'm hoping that we see some of that this year. I have zero confidence that we will. Outside of the hockey line shifts that I see happening, I think that we're going to have, full range changes of defensive scheme and players, swapping in and out. More than just the one guy here, the one guy there, or it's a sub package change. I think that you're going to see, two guys coming in on first and second down that might be a little bit differently than what we've seen in the past. All scheme and team dependent, on what that team runs and how that team operates. Every game plan is independent to the team that they're going up against. So for that, I just wanted to talk about that for a moment because I feel like playing 17 games is tough. Now, they've been doing it for, five years now, I think, 6 years. This might be the sixth season. Maybe it's been a little bit longer. But going to 18 games, this is where I think you need to be able to get your players an entire game off. And when the Lions get into that crux of the schedule, which is around Thanksgiving, right? Traveling to Germany, coming back, playing a game, and then Thanksgiving. This is where you need to give those players a lot of rest. And this is where I think the team needs to have a much better idea of how to get them rest. And I think it starts with when you travel. As soon as your last game is done, they should already be packed up. Planes should be fueled up, ready to go. And I think you get out to Germany on Tuesday, right? Get out there way early. Let your body acclimate to the time change, the time difference. I mean, you're going to the opposite side of the world, right? So there's going to be a huge difference in time. Let your body adjust and then start waking up super early, to go through your practices so that your body's fully adjusted. If they don't do that, then I don't think that you have an opportunity to win the game. I don't think that you can go out there and prepare for a game in just 2 or 3 days. I think you need to have more time. But we'll see how they do it. The players or the teams that went out, last year, I forget which team stayed for 2 weeks. Like they had 2 international games back to back. The NFL needs to figure out a better way to make this happen because we got screwed again. And I feel that way. I feel like we got screwed. I've heard the rumors that, or maybe it's a fact, that Rod Wood was given an opportunity to not play in Germany and to have a later bye, or play in Germany and not have a bye. They took Germany, which I get it. I understand it. Probably should have opted for the bye and not played in Germany this year. That way you get your team rested and you're able to, push. Having an early bye again, it's not going to help this team. And so I think if you can't have a later bye, then you need to manufacture a bye by getting your players some rest and more rest throughout the season. I think that is where you will see this team perform a lot better. And I think that the players are going to stay a lot healthier. So I'd love to know your thoughts, your ideas on that. Let me know in the comments below. How would you handle it if you were a general manager or a head coach, would you do it any differently than I guess what I just said, or how would you do it differently? I'm interested to know. I'm really interested to know. All right, let me get into the chat here, and we'll end the day with some chat. So, let's see here. So it looks like you guys are talking about Tom Brady in the last few messages here. Let me go back. Too much truth telling. Is that Tom or was that something else? I don't know where that was. But K-Biz says players that don't want to play? ? So you still get paid even if you are on the practice squad. Okay, Tom. That's cruising. K-Biz says practice squad guys get paid. They're not making earth-shattering money, but I bet it's better than what we make. Yeah, so they make about 234, I think 236. I mean, it's a lot of money, right? But I think you also have to look at how much they're being taxed. And then, look, they get their whole life pretty much kind of taken care of for them. They don't have to pay for their flights. They get, fed pretty well all day at the facility. Outside of that, a lot of these guys don't go and buy big homes, when they're on the practice squad. They live in, just a regular apartment like we would, maybe a little bit nicer. So their life is not as super expensive, but $234,000. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money. I mean, especially to a lot of people that, make the average adult wage in America, I think is like $54,000. And that's not enough to live on. Like, it's pretty tough to live on that kind of money. Not saying that it's a bad thing, but it just, in today's, society, it's really tough. So even having two people in a family that make, combined income of $120,000 is pretty difficult, especially if you, have kids in that. So it's not, like you said, it's not earth-shattering money. Of course they want to play. Of course they want to be on the roster. Why? Because then your rate goes up like fourfold. The minimum I think that you can get paid in the league is $890 or $920 or something like that. It's a lot more money. It's 3 or 4 times what you get paid on the practice squad. Let's see. Tom owner should keep it tight-lipped. Yeah, Tom being an owner should keep it tight-lipped. I agree there. Trey says he's talking about a pattern he saw. It also shows that some do not transition to the NFL from college all that good. Cruzen says, let's interview TK85. Hey, there you go. Right? TK85, man. He's been a practice squad player his entire life. Of course he wants to play. And look how well he's played when he does get an opportunity. But that's the exact player that I'm talking about too, the hype. Right? How many times have we seen TK85 in preseason just go berserk? And he just has an incredible preseason, incredible camp, and then he doesn't make the roster. But he sticks around in the practice squad. And then when he gets an opportunity, he's played pretty well. That is a player that probably should have been on a roster in the NFL somewhere. But I think once he became a vet, he wanted to stick in Detroit, is my understanding. And he really hasn't ventured too far away from Detroit. So I give my hat off to Tom, man. And Tom, TK85. He's done a hell of a job. But he absolutely wants to play. And he wants to make more money. Now, your game check is a little bit different. So when you do get called up, I think you get called up or paid, I think, for 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. I might be misunderstanding that rule, but I think it has something to do with 3 weeks. If you get called up, you get paid, regular rate for 3 weeks, whether you're on the roster or not. Aaron Green says, to me, it sounds like he's just kind of stuck his neck out for somebody and they just didn't want it. I'm sure it exists, but it's probably very minute. That could be too, man. Maybe he did stick his neck out for some players. Let's see what else. Rather be fishing. Good morning. John Desage says I could definitely see more load management this year. That's a great term. The load management, it's a great term to throw at this. I think you're right. Mike P, good morning this morning. Good morning, Miss P. Says I think you go that route, you will see more hungry or a more hurry up O to stop your hockey line change on D. Yes, I think yes, exactly. But the question for me, Mike, would be this: are they able to do it? Are they able to do the hurry up O to stop it? And I think it's going to be game dependent. I think it's going to be score dependent, kind of what's happening in the game. You know this better than anybody. If you're not able to go hurry up O, and if it's a tight game, I don't think you're going to want to go hurry up O if you're trying to, obviously get back into the fold and try to win the game. If it's late in the game and you have a sizable lead, I don't think that the Lions are really going to do a bunch of hockey line shifts. I think it's going to be earlier in the game to set the tone, to kind of save the guys and then really press it later. Once you have that lead, I don't think that you really need to press it as much later. I guess what I was trying to say. But yeah, to your point, hurry up O would stop that. And the other thing too, which this rule is what I think helps the Lions. To your point, hurry up O would stop it. But if you change one player on offense, the new rule that has been in the league now for a few seasons is you have to give the defense enough time to change as many players as they want as well. So if even one player comes off, I think that is where you have your hockey line shift ready to go. It's already called up. They already know what's happening. Calvin Shepard's already communicated to all the positional coaches. All the positional coaches have all their guys, ready to go, helmets on the sideline. Hey, if this one player comes off, you 4 or 5 are going in, right? And you 4 or 5 are coming out. And so I think that is the one added benefit to being able to pull this off. It does rely on what the offense is doing, to your point. So that's a great point. What else do we have? Rather be fishy says the hurry up offense is difficult to manage, but when the offense rotates, the defense also given a chance. To what I was just saying. Great minds think alike. I got one other thing for today. I totally forgot. I got one other thing. Hold on. We got to finish on this because if this is legit, this came from Raw B. He made me aware of this. Hold on here. If this is legit, I'm actually not mad about it if it's legit. Oh, where did it go? I know I got it up in here. Just got to find it. Man, what did I do with it? Come on, man. What in the world? Oh, there it is. Okay. If this is legit, I'm not mad. So is Caleb Williams the Madden cover of 27? I honestly could care less. And here's why. You guys know as well as I do that there's a Madden cover curse. Now, I know a lot of people have debated whether it's legit, but just about every year, and I'm not prepared to talk about every year because I didn't go and look, but I know just about every year who has ever ended up on the Madden cover has had a terrible season or a pretty significant injury. So the Madden curse is that any player who appears on the EA Sports Madden NFL video game cover will suffer a sudden decline in performance, an off-field controversy, or a severe season-limiting injury. I haven't gone back to look at all, like I said, how many years it's really happened. but I'm pretty confident that more than 50-60% of the time it does happen. Now, I also didn't look at the legitness of this. What I read is that it appeared to be a leak, but there has been zero confirmation. Again, I haven't looked too deep, but zero confirmation on whether or not this is a legit leak from Madden or the NFL. And then KBiz, no, that was all fake. Someone did that with Adobe Photoshop. And the individuals that did that, I also put the real photo of Caleb Williams on their Twitter because, yeah, that's just BS. I mean, I get people are trying to be funny, but when you don't say that it's for funds, then you're misleading people. But he didn't show up 40 pounds over looking like a true dad bod. But okay, so Calvin, what year was he on, KBiz? Do you remember that? Do you remember what year it was? Let's play with it for a minute. Let's take a look at it. '13? Was that 2013? So I just found a quick article. This was back in 2012. It says Calvin Johnson wins the Madden NFL 13 cover vote. And it says the Madden curse is for mortals or guys who never belonged on the video game's cover to begin with, like Caleb Williams. Calvin Johnson isn't mortal. So Detroit Lions fans shouldn't be worried about the curse after learning the wide receiver indeed will grace the cover of the Madden NFL 13 cover here in 2012. So it was announced on Wednesday in Times Square that Johnson won a 52% to 48% vote over Cam Newton for the honor when the game is released in August. And it goes on to say that actually the Madden curse is for those of us with nothing better to talk about during the offseason. Johnson is one of the most electrifying players to watch in the NFL, and being on the cover of Madden won't change that. He is one of the only players who makes other NFL athletes look like just guys by comparison. This is by Greg Rosenthal. Man, what a nice hype up story for Johnson. So let's take a look at Calvin Johnson's stats. And his injury history. Oh, okay. So it was 20. So I got to understand the Madden cover. Let me get Caleb Williams off my screen. I can't stand this dude. Let me understand how the Madden cover works. For those of you that play, I haven't played in a while. It's 2026. So the 2027 cover is this year, but it's in August that the game is released. So it'll be for August of 26 to August of 27. So that's why they call it the 2027 Madden cover, right? Am I correct on that? So if that's the case, if he was on the 2013 cover, then that means it would have been the 2012 season, right? Do I have that right? And if that's the case, in 2012, Johnson played the majority of the season with 2 to 3 broken fingers. But he also posted the all-time record of 1,964 receiving yards. He had a couple of concussions with some nerve damage in week 4 against Minnesota. And he dealt with lingering knee and ankle issues, missing practice, but he avoided missing any games. In 2013, he had some ongoing, wear and tear, obviously, from playing in the league, but he did finally miss some games. He missed his first full game since 2010 due to knee and calf injuries. He sat out week 14 and week 16 of that year, still put up 1,492 yards. So if I got that right, then he actually put up a record on the Madden cover. And that's pretty exciting. But for guys that really don't belong, I just can't imagine Caleb Williams being on the cover. Is this what a 52% completion rate gets you now? The Madden cover? I don't understand it. Like, he's not the person I would put. And if I'm Jahmyr Gibbs, I would turn it down. Like, I wouldn't want to be on the cover. Maybe he does want to be on the cover, and maybe he doesn't believe in the curse. So let's take a look. Since I didn't do this, I'll do it now. What the hell? All right. All right, so in June of last year, Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports took a look back at 25 plus years of the Madden cover. We'll finish on this. Let me see if I can get this up on the screen real quick. Oh, whoops. It's got to fix the size here, and then should be good to go. If I didn't try to do these borders, this would be a lot easier. I could just throw it up and be no problem, but maybe I'll fix that later. All right, here we go. So this is by, I think, like I said, Cody Benjamin back last year. He said, let's take a look back. The fate of the 25 cover athletes since 2000 using the years from the Madden titles. Here we go. 2001, Tennessee Titans running back Eddie George. He went on to rush for more than 1,500 yards, but he also lost a career high number of fumbles. He coughed off the ball in the Titans season-ending playoff game and never averaged more than 3.4 yards per carry for the rest of his career. Verdict? Cursed. That's great. That's great. That's not great, but you know what I'm saying. All right. Minnesota Vikings quarterback Dante Culpepper. He threw for 33 touchdowns. He went 11-5 that year as a first-time starter in 2000. He took a nosedive during his cover season. Injuries cost him 6 games. He fumbled 16 times. And he threw just 14 touchdowns compared to 13 picks. And he went 4-7 in his starts. Verdict, cursed. How about Marshall Faulk? Man, I love Marshall Faulk. 03, Hall of Famer entered his cover season, having logged 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons and 3 straight 1,300-yard campaigns. But in 2002, Faulk broke down, missing almost half a dozen starts, and he never topped 1,000 yards again. So it's not just that season. It's what follows that season. So, yeah, you know what? Caleb, please be on the cover. Verdict, cursed. So that's 3 for 3. How about Mike Vick? Well, remember what it said, too. It said off-field issues, too, like some sort of controversy. Well, we know Mike Vick had that crazy dog scandal going on. So in the game, Vick was unstoppable thanks to his unmatched speed on the field, despite exploding onto the scene as the number 1 pick. A fractured fibula less than a week after the game's release sidelined him for all but 5 games. 4 years later, he was in jail. Verdict, cursed. Ray Lewis, his interception total dropped from 6 to 0 in 04, his cover year. And the Ravens also missed the playoffs, but that's nitpicking. He also logged 147 tackles. If we were talking about the following year, there might be a case to be made as he missed 10 games, so not cursed. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4. If someone wants to keep track, that's 4 curses, 1 not curse in 5 years. So we're 4-1. 06 Eagles quarterback Donovan McNabb hit his peak in 04, throwing 31 touchdowns, leading the Eagles to Super Bowl 34. But in 05 was rock bottom. He scuffled with Terrell Owens and missed almost half of a 6-10 season. He went on to miss 8 games over the next 2 years. Verdict, cursed. So that's 5-1. '07. Sean Alexander. He entered his cover year with 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And then it came to a halt in 06. During his cover year, he dropped from 1,880 to 896. And 2 years later, he was out of the NFL. Wow. Cursed. Vince Young. He was the offensive rookie of the year in 06. For his cover year, though, Young threw just 9 touchdowns compared to 17 interceptions, missed a game, and earned a seat on the bench for 08, never regaining Jeff Fisher's trust. Cursed. Wow. How about Brett Favre? EA began by making Favre the cover athlete as a tribute to his Packers career, which he had just ended. But then Favre forced his way out and into New York. All he did there was throw an NFL high 22 picks and hurt his shoulder before moving to Minnesota. Cursed. That's 8. Let's see. Larry Fitzgerald and safety Troy Polamalu. Fitz had one of his standard Pro Bowl seasons with more than 1,000 yards, but Polamalu missed a career 11 games in 2009 thanks to an MCL injury, recording a career-low 20 tackles. I don't remember there being 2 players on the cover, but they're calling that a half curse. So we'll throw that in the curse bucket, or the not curse bucket. 011. Drew Brees. He threw for 33 scores and earned another Pro Bowl selection, but Brees had what constitutes an off year the season he graced the cover. He threw a career high and franchise record 22 picks. His Saints also lost to the 7-9 Seahawks in the playoffs. They're calling that cursed. That's another one. 9-2. Peyton Hillis, a Madden cult hero. Hillis grunted his way to 1,000 yards as a surprise lead back in 2010, but during his cover year, he missed a half a dozen games with an injury, averaged 3.6 yards per carry, and ran his way into a journeyman backup career. Interesting. Cursed. Calvin Johnson, we just talked about Calvin, so we already know he's not cursed. If anything, he tried to resurrect the curse into being something positive, man. He went off that year. All right, Vikings, 2014 running back Adrian Peterson. If Johnson shattered the curse, Peterson may have slightly reignited it in 2013. While he topped 1,000 yards for a 6th straight season, he saw a big dip from his historic 2,000-yard campaign, then missed all but one game the following year after being indicted on child abuse charges. So remember, it said that something off-field controversy, half curse. I'll throw that in the curse bucket. So that's 11 curses, 3 non-curses. All right, Seahawks in 15. Richard Sherman. His interception total dropped, but his Seahawks failed to repeat as Super Bowl champions. But otherwise, Sherman was still at the top of his game during his cover year. It was only after the season he had to undergo Tommy John surgery. So not cursed. Good job for Sherman. Odell Beckham. There's a case to be made that the 2015 Beckham's cover year is when the flamboyant wideout fell into a mercurial trajectory, including a one-game suspension for his fight with Josh Norman, but he still dominated on the field with 1,400 yards. Not cursed. 11-5. All right, Rob Gronkowski, a five-time Pro Bowler, was coming off another double-digit touchdown season in 2016, but he missed virtually all of the Patriots' first 4 games with a hamstring injury, then finished with just 6 starts due to a herniated disc and other injury issues. Cursed. 12-5. Tom Brady, definitely not cursed. We'll just move past Tom Brady. 12-6. Antonio Brown, definitely cursed. Antonio Brown, one of the game's most gifted route runners, scored a career-high 15 TDs during his cover year, but it proved to be a tumultuous one in the Steelers' locker room, resulting in his trade to the Raiders after the season. He only played another 16 games in the NFL, bouncing between 3 different teams amid a flurry on and off-field controversies. I didn't realize that was the last year that he was extremely good, but 15 TDs in the season is insane. Cursed. 13-6. Patrick Mahomes, not cursed. 13-7. Let's see. Lamar Jackson in 2021, fresh off an MVP season as an electric dual threat, Jackson would experience a downturn in passing efficiency and durability a few years later, but his cover season in 2020 was still a star-studded affair, marking his second straight 1,000-yard rush campaign. Not cursed. I had some things prepared today for Lamar Jackson I'll save for tomorrow. Interesting conversation. Sharing the cover as the past and present faces of the NFL, both Brady and Mahomes enjoyed their typical unmatched success after gracing Madden again. The former threw an NFL high 5,300 yards and 43 touchdowns at 44 years old, taking Tampa Bay into the playoffs, while Mahomes casually tossed 37 touchdowns in a 12-5 season that ended in the AFC title game. So that's the second time that they had a dual cover that I can remember reading here. So 13-9, John Madden in 2023. The Hall of Fame coach and broadcaster died at 85 in late of 2021, and he returned to the cover of his famous series as part of a tribute to the 2022 season. Definitely not cursed. John Madden is, what a legend that John was. But he's not a player, so we can't count it. 2024, Josh Allen, not cursed. And then 2025, Christian McCaffrey. So that puts us at 13-10. And this will end us at 14-10. So 14 cursed, 10 not cursed. McCaffrey was lights out in his 23 Offensive Player of the Year campaign, only to miss all but 4 games in his post-cover season due to an Achilles tendonitis, a centerpiece of Kyle Shanahan's attack the year prior. But Christian McCaffrey managed a career-low 202 rushing yards by the end of 24, easily his most deflating season as a pro. Final verdict, here's what it says. 14 of the 24 cover athletes, I don't even have to keep track of this, it did it for us. 58% of the time were cursed, and just 3 of the 10 cover athletes from the last 10 years, 2015 to 25, have been cursed. So there hasn't been back-to-back curses since 2011 to 2012. So is the Madden curse alive? Maybe, but it may well be losing its power. Maybe they put Madden on the cover to get rid of the curse. I don't know. But anyway, Planned on only going until 10. Of course, it's 10:45. We did start a little bit late today. I just want to say, man, love and appreciate all of you for joining Rocked On Detroit Lions, the Rise and Grind Morning Show. You guys are the best part of what makes this happen. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Just check your little box right now. Make sure it's toggled on. Notifications are on so that you know when we go live and when we drop videos. I promise you don't get a lot of spam from this channel. It's only like 2-3 notifications a day when I'm having an active day. We got a lot of work to do this season, and I'm proud to be doing this, man. I'm happy to be here in this chair, having good conversations with each and every single one of you. You guys do an excellent job in the chat, keeping everything copacetic. But just remember, look, some days we're going to have disagreements. It's okay. Let's just keep things professional and all will be good. Like I do every off season, I want to get back to doing some night shows. Tomorrow we'll be back with Eric. He's doing his weekly appearance until the season kicks off, or I think later in July when he'll be back to 5 days a week or whatever his schedule will be. So I do want to get back to doing some night shows, and we'll probably go back to like the 7 or 8 o'clock time. Not real sure exactly which time I'm going to do yet, but we will, and that means that the mailbag needs to get loaded up. If I haven't responded to your emails, I've been extremely busy. But start loading it up so that we can get, the gripes and hype or mailbag. We'll come up with a different name we'll stick with this year. And once I get some of my time back, I'll start writing again. But right now, there's just not a lot to talk about. And the pieces that I do are typically a little bit different than normal news anyway. I like to do full topics that are different and deep dives that are different. But I am going to start doing like an off-season series this year. Which I mentioned a couple weeks back. I'm going to start doing a daily podcast that I'm going to just deliver, whether it's premiered or whether it comes out at 7 a.m. I'm not real sure what I'm going to do yet, but that will start by next week. I wanted to get it started by June 1st, but I've got a lot to do this week, so I don't know if I'm going to carve out the extra time. And it's going to start at Season 1, Episode 1. It's going to be a new podcast. It's going to end up going up on the Believe Network at some point. I just need your help to get to the download, so make sure you guys download it and leave a 5-star review, and we'll get rocking and rolling with the Believe Network as well. So, all right, with that, I yield back my time, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Go and Pride, go Detroit Lions. Remember, take care of each other. Be nice to each other, and we'll see you in the next one.
Pressured by Hutchinson.